Shalom Aleichem. My name is Ovadia El Ghayar Yaman, and I'm going to recite to you my bar mitzvah.
I was born in Baghdad in 1945. We were Arab Jews. We spoke Arabic at home. Our culture was Arab culture. Our friends were Arab friends. In Iraq, the Jews didn't live in ghettos.
So why am I brown? The Jews of Yemen are a very ancient community, dated back to the days of the first temple.
So the Jews were invented by the Persians to control the Levant. The Jews is actually a Persian term, okay?
The emergence of a number of rabbinical sects in Judaism. Post-exile, you had the emergence of the Sadducees, the Essenes, and the Pharisees.
Banana, mango. Do you know, there was still like rationing in this country. You know, they've never heard of these fruits. You know, only when the West Indians came from Jamaica, they brought all this over with them. So, I felt like, where do these people come from? You know, how come they're so backwards in the food and the way they spoke and their interest in life?
Sound illogical, facts over fantasy. Sound illogical, link with humanity. Like, share and subscribe.
Here's an interesting fact for you. The question of where Jewish people came from is one of the most debated topics in both religious and academic circles. And I'm not talking about recent debates. I'm talking about controversies that have raged for thousands of years. Where did the Jewish people actually originate? Was Abraham a real historical figure or a myth? Did the exodus from Egypt actually happen? Are modern Jews directly descended from ancient Israelites, or is the connection more complicated than we've been told? These aren't just academic questions. These are questions that have sparked wars, inspired movements, and divided scholars for generations. And here's the uncomfortable truth. The answers depend entirely on who you ask. In this video, we're diving deep into why the origins of the Jewish people remain so intensely controversial. We'll explore the competing narratives, the archaeological evidence that both supports and contradicts traditional accounts, and the modern genetic discoveries that have completely reshaped this conversation. But more importantly, we're going to understand why this controversy matters so much. Because the story of Jewish origins isn't just about the past. It's about identity, legitimacy, and claims that affect millions of people today. So buckle up. This journey is going to challenge everything you thought you knew. Let's start with what most people learn first, the traditional biblical narrative. According to the Hebrew Bible, Jewish origins begin with Abraham, a man called by God to leave his homeland of Ur and journey to Canaan around 2000 BC. His grandson Jacob, later renamed Israel, had 12 sons who became the 12 tribes. These tribes eventually ended up enslaved in Egypt, were freed by Moses in a miraculous exodus, wandered the desert for 40 years, and then conquered Canaan under Joshua. It's a powerful, cohesive narrative. One people, one origin, one divine mission. But here's where things get controversial. Modern archaeology and historical scholarship have struggled to find evidence supporting large portions of this narrative. And I mean really struggled. There's no Egyptian record of Hebrew slaves, no archaeological evidence of a massive exodus, no signs of a military conquest of Canaan by outside invaders. The walls of Jericho, they didn't fall when the biblical timeline suggests they should have. Does this mean the biblical account is fiction? Not necessarily. But it means the relationship between the traditional narrative and historical reality is far more complex than a straightforward reading suggests. And this is where the controversy begins to heat up. Some scholars argue that the Israelites were actually indigenous Canaanites, who gradually developed a distinct identity. Others suggest a small group of escaped slaves from Egypt, joined with Canaanite populations, and their story became amplified over time. Still others defend the essential accuracy of the biblical account, while acknowledging that details may have been simplified or dramatized. Each of these positions has passionate defenders and critics. Each has implications that extend far beyond academic debate. Because if the Exodus didn't happen as described, what does that mean for Jewish identity? If Abraham wasn't a real person, what happens to the covenant? If the conquest of Canaan is more complex than the Bible suggests, how does that affect modern territorial claims? These aren't just theoretical questions. Let me walk you through the archaeological evidence because this is where things get really fascinating and really complicated. The problem isn't that there's no ancient evidence. The problem is that the evidence we have doesn't always align with when and how the traditional narrative says things happened. Take the city of Jericho, for example. According to the biblical account, Joshua led the Israelites to conquer this fortified city around 1400 BC, with its walls famously falling after the Israelites marched around them. Archaeological excavations show that Jericho did have walls and they did fall. But here's the issue. The destruction happened centuries before the traditional biblical timeline. And when Joshua supposedly arrived, Jericho wasn't even inhabited. Or consider Egypt. With all the detailed record-keeping the ancient Egyptians were famous for, you'd expect some mention of Hebrew slaves, devastating plagues, or the loss of a significant portion of their workforce. Yet Egyptian records from the proposed time period are silent on all of this. The absence of evidence isn't evidence of absence, as scholars like to say. This brings us to one of the most controversial theories in biblical scholarship, that the Jewish people don't have a single point of origin at all. This idea challenges everything about the traditional narrative. According to this theory, what we call the Jewish people emerged from multiple different groups that gradually coalesced over centuries. These diverse groups, according to this theory, eventually unified around shared stories, laws, and religious practices. The biblical narrative of unified origins came later, created to give this diverse coalition a common identity and purpose. It's called the peasant revolt model in some circles, popularized by scholars like Norman Gottwald. The idea is that early Israelites were essentially Canaanite underclasses who broke away from oppressive city-states and formed egalitarian communities in the highlands.
The real Jews of the Bible mythology. Yemen.
Shalom Aleichem. My name is Ovadia El-Ghayar Yaman, and I'm going to recite to you my bar mitzvah.
So why am I brown? The Jews of Yemen are a very ancient community, dated back to the days of the first temple. It is very likely that some of the Arab tribes of the Arabian Peninsula converted to Judaism. It is possible that the kingdom of Himyar was the core of this community. The most famous king of that time was Yusuf Dunawes. But after the fall of that Jewish kingdom, Jews lived under Islam. The Jews of Yemen lived as Ahl Dhimma, meaning second-class citizens under Islam. The Yemenite Jews suffered a lot under the Zaydi Imams. The most famous pogrom against the Jews of Yemen was called the Moza exile. In Yemen, there was an edict to convert Jewish orphans to Islam and take them from their families. And that's why my Yemenite grandparents left Yemen in the 1920s and 30s. And that's why I'm brown.
So the Jews were invented by the Persians to control the Levant. The Jews is actually a Persian term, okay?
The emergence of a number of rabbinical sects in Judaism. Post-exile, you had the emergence of the Sadducees, the Essenes, and the Pharisees. Now, if you ask a Hebrew speaker or someone who's versed in the Jewish tradition who the Pharisees are, they'll say they're the rabbis. In Hebrew, the word Pharisee translates as Persian. If you put Persian into Google Translate, the word it comes out with is Pharisee. So it's the Pharisees who began to develop these eschatological ideas about an end of days, angelology and demons, judgment after death, reward and punishment, heaven and hell. I'm saying that these ideas were Zoroastrian ideas.
There have been Jews in Iran for more than 2,500 years. Their numbers dwindled after the Islamic Revolution in 1979, but have since stabilized. In a country so hostile to Israel, these Jews say they're able to practice their faith with no interference. And they're working to keep Iran's ancient Jewish community alive and vibrant for many years to come.
Armenia. Interesting.
There are Jews living in the mountains of Azerbaijan. My name is India, and today I am taking you to a village you may have never heard of.
Welcome to the Red Village. It's the last remaining Jewish village in the world outside of Israel. And it's in a Muslim-majority country. Population, about 3,000. Number of active synagogues, 2.
Number of people who've heard of this place? Not enough.
The Jews here are called mountain Jews, not just because they live in the mountains, but because they've thrived here for over 2,000 years. They're descendants of Persian Jews who came to the Caucasus region over 2,000 years ago. Actually, here in Azerbaijan, the Jewish community has a special language that only they speak. The language is called Juhuri.
آذربایجان اری امورش مو انبار شوریم شمورا از دلی خواستیم اریشمو ادیم موفقیت آورد.
It's basically an ancient Persian or Farsi dialect mixed with some Hebrew and Aramaic.
So yes, in the mountains of Azerbaijan, there are Jews.
Still praying, still celebrating, and still standing.
Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.
Turkey. Israelites. Hebrew.
The Donme are perhaps the most mysterious group in the entire history of the Ottoman Empire. On the surface they had Muslim Turkish names, but internally they would practice a mystical cult-like religion combining Jewish Kabbalah and Islamic Sufism. They were essentially Sephardic Jews who came from Spain and Portugal after 1492 and settled in Salonika. Salonika had a thriving Jewish population, one of the largest in the world, and in 1648 a rabbi by the name of Shabtai Tzvi or Sabbatai Zevi proclaimed himself the long-awaited Messiah or Mashiach. Jews from all across the Ottoman Empire, Ashkenazi Jews in Europe, and even Arab Jews as far as Yemen left everything they had to follow their new Messiah. But in 1666, Sabbatai Zevi's movement grew so large that he was brought before Sultan Mehmed IV and given the choice of death or conversion to Islam, and he converted to Islam and took the name Mehmet Aziz Effendi. For the next 350 years, these Muslim converts, called the Donme or the Mamanim, would develop a secret underground cult-like religion. They numbered in the tens of thousands, refused to marry outside their sect, and retained the language Judeo-Espanol or Ladino. Eventually, they would establish themselves in the Young Turk movement and have influential roles in deposing Sultan Abdul Hamid and collapsing the Ottoman Empire. But in 1923, with the Greek-Turkish population exchanges, they were all moved to Istanbul from Salonika. But even today, there are still some secretive networks of practicing Donmes, roughly 3,000 to 4,000, hiding behind Muslim names and awaiting the return of Shabtai Tzvi, secretly uttering their prayers in Judeo-Espanol.
There has been a rise of Jewish Wahhabism and evangelical Christian Wahhabism, so to speak. I mean, you've seen this eschatological extremism among some American Protestants, Christians, and some Israeli and American Jews. How did that happen? What is that?
Yo, remember to click like and subscribe.
Greece.
2,300 years ago, Jews from Syria, Mizrahi Jews, settled in Patras in Greece. Unfortunately, thousands of years later, that Jewish community was destroyed by the Greek War of Independence, and the Nazis finally did in any of the descendants that were left. This is a recreation of an Arona Kodesh, a holy closet where the Sefer Torah, or the Old Testament, is held in Jewish communities, and it was passed on by the descendants of this ancient Syrian community in Greece. It is now held here, inside of the Jewish Museum in the heart of Athens, Greece. I find these really interesting. At the infancy of the creation of the State of Israel, you can see here commemorations of different land deeds and purchases, receipts, business permits of the relationship between the Greeks and the Palestinian Jews at the time. Every single place where you have the word Palestine. So this is Salonika, Palestine. Right next to it, it says Eretz Israel. We're in a room now that contains funerary fragments of Jews who lived throughout the ages in Greece. Some of these are thousands of years old. Like this one back here honors a Jewish slave that lived here in Greece, and this one of a little Jewish boy named Judah, in Greek pronounced Ludas. What I find crazy is that before the Holocaust, the Jewish community in Greece sat at around 72,000 people. The Nazis were able to kill 60,000 Greek Jews. So we've talked a lot about ancient Greek Jewish life up until this point. But what about the modern Greek Jews? Where do they live and where do they pray? On this little picturesque street in a quiet neighborhood of Athens remain two last Jewish synagogues in the city. We have the Bet Shalom synagogue, which is right behind me, which looks like an incredibly built Hellenistic Greek building, as well as the Etz Chaim synagogue, which is right across the street, a little bit smaller. Now I know this street may not look very Jewish, looks kind of more like Florentin from Tel Aviv, but these neighborhoods and these streets around where the Jewish synagogue is today actually were the neighborhoods that used to house the ancient Jewish community. Markets, shops, housed by Jewish Greeks living in Athens. One of the coolest things about the Jewish community of Athens is that even today, the traditions of the old Mizrahi and Sephardi culture is being preserved. There's a restaurant inside of the modern Chabad house called Gosticho. This right here is a traditional pie.
Egypt.
The plane stopped at Nottingham Airport. We lived in army barracks, corrugated iron barracks in Nottingham. I remember that. Freezing and starving. It wasn't rationing, but they couldn't handle it. A mass load of people coming out. I didn't understand what paragraphs were, or Wellington boots in them days, that we had to wear them. We had to put scarves around us, hats and everything. It's freezing, and the snow was up here.
Was that the first time you'd seen snow?
Of course. When do you see snow in Egypt? It was going to be a new life. And the best thing that's happened to us, we were sent to the shelter. How can you have 8 children in the shelter? But when I went to school and I spoke to other students, banana, mango, do you know, it was like, there was still like rationing in this country. You know, they've never heard of these fruits. You know, only when the West Indians came from Jamaica, they brought all this over with them. So, I felt like, where do these people come from? You know, how come they're so backwards in the food and the way they spoke and their interest in life?
Interesting. Iraq, also known as Babylon.
There used to be almost 200,000 Jews living in Iraq, but today there are just 3 left. So what happened?
I'm standing here in front of the last semi-functional synagogue in Baghdad, Mir Tawig, just behind me, although it looks pretty boarded up, and in all honesty, I'm not sure who it would be functional for. But how did it get to a state like this, where one of the world's oldest and largest Jewish populations can now be counted in the country on probably one hand?
Jews had been present in Iraq as far back as the 6th century BCE, and right throughout Iraq's history, Jews played an important role in the development of the country. In fact, the very first Minister of Finance of modern-day Iraq was an Iraqi Jew. But then, in the 1940s, they virtually disappeared. 2 things happened, a push and a pull. The push was events like the Farhud, a religious pogrom in 1941 that resulted in the deaths of hundreds of Iraqi Jews and made it clear that Iraq was no longer a safe place for them. The pull was the creation of the State of Israel in 1948, which provided a new safe haven for Iraqi Jews and the chance to build the future of a nascent Jewish state. But the final blow came in a series of highly controversial bombings in 1950 targeting Jewish houses and shops throughout Baghdad.
And it was in neighborhoods like the one I'm standing in right now, Bataween, which had one of the larger Jewish populations in Baghdad, where this occurred.
These bombings are still controversial today, as some believe that Israel's secret services, the Mossad, were the ones who orchestrated them in order to speed up the migration of Iraqi Jews to Israel as part of their 2-year airlift operation, not Muslim extremists as the official line went. Either way, today almost the entirety of Iraq's Jewish population exists in Israel, not Iraq, and there's not even enough Jews left in the country to meet the minimum 10-person quorum for a public prayer. It's a dramatic, controversial, and heartbreaking what-if for a population that had, for centuries, called Iraq home.
I was born in Baghdad in 1945. We were Arab Jews. We spoke Arabic at home. Our culture was Arab culture. Our friends were Arab friends. In Iraq, the Jews didn't live in ghettos. They lived everywhere, and the Jews were a very positive element in the making of our modern Iraq. They contributed at every level: the economic, the financial, the political, the literary, journalism. The Jews were a very positive force in Iraqi society. What changed was the creation of the State of Israel in 1948.
Interesting. Libya.
So the Jews lived in what today is called Medina al-Qadima, that means the old city. That then was not the old city, was the real city. And the main place, the focus of this neighborhood is called, because the Italian made there the mayor hall. The mayor hall. So this is called Piazza del Municipio. And also the Arabs call it Maidan al-Baladiyya. I mean the square of the what do you call it, area?
Like town hall.
Town hall, exactly. Is a big square, very nice, with very nice Italian buildings, or built up by the Italian architects, very nice, with the main road that called until today Omar al-Mukhtar Road, and all the shops were of Jews. I remember a perfumery of a Zarouk family, and a sewer, someone called until now is alive, Lilo Babi, and clothes and everything, and the office of my father of the medicine, that it was only the office, and the deposits were in another street near my house. On the other side of the square start the very famous market in Benghazi that called Souk al-Dalam, that the translation is the black market, but that is black because it's all covered, and so if you go there without having the electricity, it's very black. It's just, don't see nothing. After Gaddafi, when he came, he opened it, but since then was called the Souk al-Dalam.
Interesting. Morocco.
Yes.
From where?
From Marrakesh.
But 1 second, where are you from?
From Marrakesh, and we're both Backnees.
Oh my gosh, brothers! This is what happens at our shul.
Yes.
Tell me something interesting about your flavor of Jews.
In the history of Judaism, going back 500 years, and the cemeteries and everything is impeccable. The government
Keeps it nice?
Keeps it beautiful. The cemeteries, the shuls, and they're all open. Where I grew up, they're still operating.
Wow. What's the most beautiful, interesting tradition Moroccan Jews have? So Moroccan Jews are very loving and givers. If you'll come to the house, they will host you with claps and singing and a lot of
couscous and schina.
And what's your favorite Moroccan dish? It's called matboucha.
Yeah.
Really? It's tomatoes, yes. How about you? What's your favorite Moroccan dish?
Schina with couscous.
Tahina?
Schina.
What's the difference? What is that?
It's 24-hour cooking. We take it to the public ovens.
What's it made out of?
It has a couscous. It has potatoes.
Oh, it sounds like a
lamb.
cholent. It sounds like a cholent.
Like a cholent, but a Moroccan way.
Rockin' with the Moroccans, people.
Israelites.
Ever wondered why Moses or Moshe is barely mentioned in the Passover Haggadah? Well, Moroccan Jews had a different take, and it's fascinating.
Unlike most Jewish communities, Moroccan Jews start their Seder with a powerful Judeo-Arabic passage, placing Moses right at the center of the story. But why? Back in the 12th century, Moroccan Jews suffered forced conversions under the Almohad rulers. For over 120 years, Judaism had to be practiced in secret. When they were finally free to return to their faith, they needed a strong symbol of Jewish resilience. And who better than Moses? He wasn't just the leader of the Exodus, he became their symbol of survival.
Spain.
So after the Alhambra decree in 1492, all Jewish people were kicked out of Spain, or they were forced to convert to Catholicism. However, if you were very wealthy, you could stay. So this family got to stay because Jacob Herrera invented the first type of touch sign language there in French. The first sign language ever was in Spanish. Weird, right? We never hear about that. Also, that picture's really creepy to me. So this guy's sons went ahead and invested in the Suez Canal and all of the European railroads, and then they lost everything later on to the Rothschilds. So, but yes, there were Jewish people in Spain, and they eventually, this family, all their marriage and birth certificates started saying baptized, so they converted.
Turns out Christopher Columbus was a crypto Jew. Quelle surprise. Okay, so apparently a new documentary was released, and they have been studying his DNA, Columbus's DNA, for like 2 decades. And it was of Sephardic Jewish ancestry, which means that he wasn't from Italy, that he was from Spain, and pretended to be Catholic to avoid, the anti-Semitism and all that. Do you know how many of the conquistadors and other explorers that had come over were crypto Jews? Some weren't even hiding it, but that's what they did. When they came over to the Americas, they were either forced to convert to Catholicism and then practice their religion in secret, or they just flat out said, yeah, we're Christian, and they weren't. And I'm sure you know by now that he never actually stepped foot on U.S. soil. He landed in the Caribbean somewhere. I always thought he landed in, South America, but either way, that's the story. And remember that the Sephardic Jews descend from the tribe of Judah, potentially having a mix in them of the Kenites as well. So Ah, there you go. And that's your history lesson for the day. Happy Columbus Day to the Americans.
India. Interesting.
Did you know that Jews in India never suffered anti-Semitism? Jews have lived in India for centuries, possibly since ancient times. The most well-known communities are the Bnei Israel, Bnei Menashe, the Cochin Jews, and the Baghdadi Jews. What's fascinating is how these Jewish communities thrived alongside their Hindu neighbors, free from persecution and hate. Why was this the case? Well, it's largely because of India's unique cultural and religious diversity. Indian society historically embraced pluralism, allowing Jews to practice their faith and customs freely. This history is a testament to the power of tolerance and mutual respect. In a world often divided by religious and ethnic lines, learn from India.
Interesting. Ethiopia. Interesting.
In Ethiopia, you'll hear Ethiopia was never colonized, the only country that was never colonized. And a lot of Rastafarian brethren will tell you this. Ethiopia was never colonized.
Ethiopia is the first country in Africa to be colonized by religion. No, but you see, the truth must not massage. We must not massage the truth. We must not. This is unpopular opinion. This is not your contemporary opinion. Is that when it is written in the Kebra Negast, when the Queen of Sheba visited Solomon, she said in the conversation with Solomon, she said, "I worship the sun. Some people in my country worship the moon and others worship the stars." She's basically talking about religious tolerance that existed there. 6 months after sitting with Solomon, she came back with the God of Solomon. She declared that from now on, all of you, we no more worship God we used to worship. She's basically destroying religious freedom. She introduced monotheism. We will now worship the God of Israel, not the God of Ethiopia. Now tell me if that is not religious colonialism. You know, that you introduce that from now on, we are going to worship the God of my boyfriend. Understand? Which most of the Ethiopians themselves never saw King Solomon. That is why among the Oromos, they will tell you that the Solomonic dynasty, or the myth of Solomon and Sheba, it is a myth based on fornication and theft.
Syria.
Syrian Jews, we love being from Syria. We have so much pride about being Syrian, but we can't go to Syria. You can't go back. They're trying to bring Jews back to Syria. The Syrian government wants Jews to come back. I mean, that's just a trap, right? And there's a new president in Syria. What's his name? Got overthrown. There's a new president. He's a former member of Al Qaeda. For real. But he said it's like an ex-girlfriend. He goes, "Please come back. I swear I have changed. I do not. If I was in charge back then, I would have added a tower to New York. I did not want this to happen."
Interesting. Algeria.
Jewesses were the favoured models for Western artists in Algeria, partly because it was forbidden for them to portray Muslim women. The drawing shows a young pregnant Jewess woman who wears a headdress called a sama. Interesting fact. This Jewess, obese woman, was considered a beauty in her neighbour's judgment. In fact, her weight is over 200 pounds, associating her with wealth and prosperity.
What I'm holding in my hand is matzah, which we used to have in Algeria. It's still made in Agra. It's not produced, it's not sold in this country, in England. It's not sold in Israel. It's only sold in France. And I go and get it every year. That's all we had. We didn't have the flat, the small one, the thin one. It is a different taste. It's certainly harder. We put it in soup. We make it as rice. Instead of rice, because we don't eat rice as Sephardi. That's our matzah.
Interesting. We have focused particularly on the diaspora from West Asia and North Africa, which tells its story through Hebrew mythology, whether Kabbalistic, Hebraic, or Islamic, you have seen the people who contributed to various Semitic traditions known as the people of the book. Interesting. Interesting.
Interesting, as we re-explore their history. But before you go, let me know what you found most interesting by leaving a comment below. Also, check out our playlist called Exodus Myth, where you can find out even more information regarding these topics. Big up. Bless up.
When Israel was in Egypt land. This is just retarded. Come on, man, let it go. You'll feel better.
Moshe was a pretty impressive guy.
So if it wasn't Moses, why are people dedicating their lives to follow a book with no evidence, with evidence against it, that's written by anonymous authors? This is madness!
This is the Bible.
The Jews were never slaves in Egypt. Like the rest of the Bible, it's a mix of myth and legend, and it's about time that we start embracing reality.
You did not see a single brick made of any material but steps made of mud and straw. It's a damnable lie. And you don't want me to say that because that is not academic to say a person is lying. But if you're not telling the truth, you're lying. Huh? But the Jews have built a single pyramid. Remember, I came up in the Jewish religion, born in it. My dad was one, my mama was one. Judaism, Christianity, and or Islam, depending on which one you adhere to, is the only correct one.
Sound logical, facts over fantasy. Sound logical, link with humanity. Like, share and subscribe for truth and clarity. Like, what are your sins?